Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, columnist Ryan Karchi. Scoop Talk from within what is now Banker's Life Fieldhouse. I'm not used to that yet. Got some really inspiring quotes here. We're in, they do it in a different place for Big Tens than they do it when they have like regular games or high school all-stars or I think even Pacers games. They let us kind of hang out in this sort of like club area that's
It's called
pretty
the
swanky.
locker room. It's like a restaurant.
Yeah, the actual press room where we actually write and everything like that is on the practice facilities where the Pacers actually practice. They kind of clear them out, put a whole bunch of tables up there, and we write. But anyway, you don't really care about that. Indiana wins 75-58, but they take a significant loss, especially emotionally, really. Riddell Jones goes down with a knee injury. We don't know exactly the extent of it yet. They're using the word sprain, but sprain can mean a lot of things. Sprain actually means there is a tear in the ligament, but the degree to which is kind of the question. I mean, usually when somebody says torn ACL, it's entirely torn, it's entirely gone. You know, partially torn and a sprain is kind of the same thing, so it's kind of a question of degree. And the degree didn't look good. I mean, even if you have a mild one, it usually costs you a couple weeks. And Verdell, the way he went down, looked, you know, we're not doctors, but it didn't look good.
I mean, he was in some serious agony. And when he came down, his knee, when his right foot touched the ground, it immediately shot up. He immediately grabbed his knee, and I mean, it took him a while just to get standing up.
Not even standing, sitting.
Yeah.
Sitting up. I mean, just from the point of like just laying just completely on the floor to even sitting up. I mean, they cheered that because that was enough movement. I mean, he really was having a hard time doing anything. And it was dead, solid quiet. I mean,
it was bad, and I think even more telling than that was how Tom Crean reacted. I mean, he was in a post-game interview with the Big Ten Network, and unprompted, you know, got really choked up and said that his team was really affected by Verdell's loss, and obviously he was. And I mean, we've seen a few other guys get hurt, and sometimes it's looked worse than others, and that sort of thing.
And Maurice, I mean, I've seen Maurice Creek go down a couple of times.
And I wasn't here for Creek, but just Crean's reaction kind of told you this really looks like the end for Riddell Jones.
The worst part is and Creek was bad. That vacuum was really loud.
Yeah, that was nice.
But you know, Creek was bad. Creek was rough, especially the first time when, you know, it was actually Riddell was one of the guys, you know, kind of staring at, you know, the classic picture from Chris Howe that we still have of you know, Riddell sort of looking at his knee like, whoa, like I didn't know it could do that. And it's not so much that it was that sort of level of injury. It was more so the emotional understanding that it doesn't have to be that bad for Verdell never to play college basketball again. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of time left, and this was supposed to be, you know, the best times. I mean, this was his shot to play in an NCAA tournament. He was going to get to go to a big dance. I mean, he'll still probably go, you have to presume. But, you know, doesn't look like he has a chance to play in it. And after all that he'd been through, after, you know, 4 years, and not only did he see a lot of losses, Verdell took more of the slings and arrows than anybody else.
Absolutely.
You know, than anybody else in this team. You know, for all that Corey Barnett and Matt Roth and Daniel Moore and Tom Pritchard have contributed, you know, Verdell was really on the front line of everything. Verdell had to have, you know, himself questioned so many times. Was this the right decision? Was that the right shot? Did he do the right thing there? You know, what's wrong with him here? What's wrong with him there? He had to face all of those questions, go through all those losses, just take all that beating and take it personally. And, you know, I mean, he was so happy just even a week ago when he was just talking to us before, you know, before senior day. You know, all the seniors, they always bring him out and we get a chance to really kind of sit down with them one-on-one. You know, not one-on-one, but, you know, all of us just talking to him about their careers. And when he was just talking about just what it was going to mean to know that he was going to play in the NCAA tournament, just how much he was going to cherish that. And you know, you could see it taken out of Tom that knew that just maybe that's what this means, is that even if he gets to see it, if he even gets to see the name on the bracket, which I'm sure will mean a lot in and of itself, it might not mean that he actually gets to put on a uniform and play through it.
And, I mean, it's just kind of a cruel reminder of how fate can sort of twist, especially one player's path and a team's path. And I know, you know, Indiana by comparison to maybe other teams or maybe past years, they haven't really had to deal with many injuries. Or
this team hasn't, no. I mean, comparatively.
This year. And, you know, this is it's almost kind of cruel that this had to happen
It is.
at
It's really
at
cruel.
this point.
Yeah.
Especially to a guy who meant so much like Verdell Jones. But that, like a few of the players said, it's basketball. I mean, that's what they expect, and they've kind of had this mantra that they haven't really used until now. And from every player I interviewed, they said the same thing. It's next man up.
Yeah.
I mean, to a point, yeah. I think Indiana can recover from this, but I mean, that's another guy who can handle the ball, who can bring the ball up court, who can allow Jordan Hulls not to play point guard and allow him to play the 2, which it seems like he's been way more effective when he's not handling the ball as much. And you know, Verdell Jones just really started to find his role and kind of find his niche in the last few weeks, and looks like this may be the end of it.
It's a significant on-court loss, but I think the bigger thing, and I'm sure he'll provide some degree of leadership somehow from a distance.
Absolutely.
I think what the bigger thing, the biggest thing it does is I think it just is going to take a little bit of the joy out of it. Not a lot, not to the point that Indiana won't be able to enjoy what this is, but I think more than anybody else, you could see it in Verdell what it meant, and I think to not have him on the floor for that is going to cost them a little bit, a tad of the enjoyment. And you can't not enjoy the NCAA tournament. You can't not enjoy some of the things this team is going to go through in the next couple of weeks. But I think it was a situation where this team could keep looking at somebody like Verdell and just know what he'd been through and be able to say, man, how great is this that we're here, that we've gone through all this, and now that we're here. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest thing.
But
it's just going to sap some spirit out. I mean, but you're right. I mean, he's been a really good leader to this team. Him and Jordan Hulls have an interesting sort of leadership dynamic. I guess Verdell just kind of put it as, Jordy kind of makes the proclamations, but Verdell kind of makes sure they're enforced. Make sure that everybody's listening and paying attention. That Jordy's sort of soft-spokenness doesn't allow his commands to kind of go by the wayside. Verdell made sure that everybody was doing what Jordy said, and that matters. And like you said, the ball handling matters. I mean, he's another guy who can defend a point guard, which makes a difference. It makes him less versatile defensively. I mean, Remy Abel's a nice player. He's going to go a lot more minutes because of this. There's things that they can do that way, but
see, the other side of the coin. I mean, you can look at it a different way in the sense that this team, and all of them kind of said this, was they rallied around the fact that Verdell was out and was injured, and in that second half, I mean, it was all Indiana. I mean, this game wasn't close in the second half. I mean, they had shot Penn State shot 29% in the second half, and Indiana did only shoot 36%, but they were in control of this game to the point that Victor Oladipo really took Tim Frazier completely out of the game. I think his first points were...
It was part Vic, but it was part everybody. I mean, that was a team defensive effort on Frazier. They used a lot of 2-3 zones, did a lot of different things. I mean, Oladipo said yesterday when we talked to him about it, what does it mean that you have so many guys that can guard a point guard in this case when you can play against Frazier? And he says, we can just keep showing them different looks, and that'll wear them down. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. It's pretty much what he said. I mean, I know he had a shot at him. I think Verdell had a shot at him. I know he had a shot at him. I think Watford spent a little bit of time on him. Maybe Jordy Hulls had him for a brief period, but there was also a lot of 2-3 zone worked in there. They just kept giving him different looks, and eventually Frazier did seem to get worn out. I mean, he was just putting up shots after shots after shots. They weren't really giving him the opportunity to get anybody else involved. He ends up 9 with 26 points, but he's 9 for 24. He had to do a lot of work to get there. There's only one other guy on the team that had double figures.
And Indiana
shoot 36%.
Indiana did not shoot very well in this game. I mean,
Jordy.
every single player except for Jordan Hulls shot below 50%.
Yeah.
But Jordan Hulls shot 7 of 10, 4 of 6 from 3. Had probably I would say his best shooting game of the season.
It was up there. It wasn't as good as the first time he played Penn State.
Maybe,
it was lights out. Him and Roth both, when they were just absolutely dropping bombs.
But he seemed more aggressive in this game, and they kind of asked him in the locker room, what about Penn State makes you, come out more for this game than maybe another game and score more for this game or in front of them? And he's like I don't know, but he said he was trying to be more aggressive, and that really came out. And I mean, if Verdell Jones is out for extended period or for the rest of the postseason, Jordan Hulls is going to have to step up. I mean, he's really going to have to facilitate. Like, Verdell's kind of taken that role more than a little bit away from Jordy, and I think Jordy's he's gonna be the main facilitator on this team no matter what from here on out.
Yeah, it's just going to change the dynamic. I mean, what Verdell did well is like a lot of times, Jordy would bring the ball up the floor. Verdell would make the next pass. He would get the assist because Jordy would give it to Verdell, and Verdell might find somebody, find a cutter, make a post entry or something like that. I mean, they really more or less at all times they try to have two ball handlers on the floor. Is really what they try to do, and have two guys that can get you assists. And this makes it a little bit tougher for that because Verdell was doing some really good things.
Wisconsin tomorrow?
Yeah. Basically, it's going to come down to one or two possessions, and it doesn't really matter because that's what Wisconsin does. Wisconsin limits possessions and, makes sure that it's a game at the wire. I mean, they're not going to blow anybody out, and no one's going to blow them out. It's going to be the same way it was in Madison, where it's maybe two offensive rebounds determine that whole game.
And they're gonna need Jordan Hulls.
It's gonna be in the 50s. They're gonna need Jordan.
They're gonna need Jordan Hulls bad because especially you got a guy like Jordan Taylor playing his best basketball of the season right now. I mean he's
gonna have to match.
He's in All-American form right now. The All-American form that made him a preseason All-American, and he's gonna have to match that kind of offensive firepower. So.
Yeah, pretty much.
We'll see.
It's gonna take a lot now. One way or another, however it goes from here, they're going to see another day, whether or not they lose tomorrow or not. But it's the first time they get to see it in Indy, first time since 2006. They see a second day in Indianapolis, see a second day in the tournament. So, one way or another, that's it. Thanks, guys.